What's up, yo? Just getting in our recap for today. Starting as usual on that hourly, you'll see just another sell off. So at 2 days in a row here that we have sold off and just attacked sell side targets. You'll see as I go to the lower time frame, the fair value gap we marked out from yesterday is what held us right going into London, and ultimately we just delivered lower into these two levels here on the hourly are just swing lows. So right after clearing this swing low, just looking for the next sell side liquidity, which was these two areas here. Right, on the daily chart, we're still reaching into, now remember we've reached into this daily fair value gap here. So just be aware of that. So as you mentioned from yesterday, right, this was our 1 minute fair value gap in a premium. At the end of the day, you see we traded up into that, hit the high perfectly and held, and really right the remainder of the day, and now going into this morning, that same fair value gap still continues to hold us, creating power of 3 as we trade into the London kill zone. So right, midnight opening, initially trade lower, but then we trade back up into the 1 minute fair value gap, trade above that midnight open, and then break structure lower. From there, right, that high ends up holding and ends up being the high of the day. You'll see here in London, where it really just gave a slight breakdown just to break structure. We trade back up into that 1 minute fair value gap again one more time. Create a little YouTube model here in that rollover period, so a quick short-term high cleared. Had that market structure shift lower. And you'll see we trade back into, right, the fair value gap as well as the volume imbalance here. So from there, just continue to trend down. We then hit that first sell side level. Right, so this was the old original swing low. Just if I go to the 15-minute quickly. Right, so that's this swing low here. So we trade into that, attack that sell side. And then as we headed into New York, just gave us a slight retracement and really a consolidation. You'll see just before the 9:30 opening, we put in here a little YouTube model. So after creating this YouTube model, right, this fair value gap, right, we'll drag that out. So right, this original model here holds us, continues to deliver lower. Now at 9:30, just prior, we create another YouTube model as we trade up into it, clearing this short-term high. And now breaking structure again, lower. And right on this break of structure, we break through the 8:30 opening with displacement, break structure here, and leave behind a 1 minute fair value gap. Right, this is also a breaker block in the form of this high, low, higher high gets broken. These last down close candles, consecutive down close candles become our breaker. So a lot of things here, right, that suggested lower prices, and as you see, right at that 9:30 opening, we wick into that area. Really that first half an hour, we're just putting in that little opening range, so we're just chopping here. But you'll see how the body's really, right, are struggling to break that 8:30 level. So we get this consolidation, but eventually, right, price gives way before creating one last YouTube model in the form of this short-term high being cleared. So remember, we're already inside an area where we would expect lower prices, right? This bearish fair value gap. So now we're seeing this model form inside of our already bearish, right, framework. So this here was a good indication of those lower prices. And as we mentioned, right, we would look for that 1 minute fair value gap left behind here, paired with this volume imbalance to hold price and send us lower. This here was that silver bullet setup. So the fair value gap created between 10 and 11, right, and the target from this premium was simply this sell side as well as, right, this hourly sell side that we had dragged out. So you'll see from here, after trading into that 1 minute fair value gap, still holding below the volume imbalance, we really accelerate lower, sell off, just attacking now sell side targets. So this one here in the short term, and then eventually reaching into that higher time frame hourly swing point here. As we had mentioned initially though, as we broke through this, creating this 1 minute fair value gap. So at the time, right, price hadn't reached into this area yet. We mentioned that since we broke through this low here with displacement and created a 1 minute fair value gap, and we still have lower sell side targets, well, now this fair value gap here is where we expected price to hold because it now becomes our premium. And as we saw, right, price trades up into it, holds there, and then delivers into our sell side beautifully. Only after delivering into sell side do we then reverse, right? Because we have just now cleared a higher time frame liquidity pool, so we can expect some type of retracement. You'll see that now we trade back up and through this 1 minute, creating an inversion here. And as we left that, right, this here became our entry point. So we break up and through now this bearish fair value gap with a 1 minute bullish fair value gap. This 1 minute bullish fair value gap was our area of interest, right? That's where we used to enter, understanding that this fair value gap here, we would prefer to stay open because it's underneath the consequent encroachment of this now inversion fair value gap. So if I'm looking for higher prices, right, I would want us to find support there like we did and trade higher into the afternoon. So as we spoke about, right, had to sit through a little bit of that consolidation as we traded back above not only that inversion and also this original sell side pool. So we're back above that level, purge and revert concept here. You notice how, right, candle bodies find support here, and then we get that expansion. We pointed out, right, the area to stack position. So we create now a little fair value gap paired with our order block here. And right, this is where you could look for those potential pyramid entries. So as we're going in favor and not creating new discount arrays, we just look for those discount arrays to hold. You'll see now heading into lunch, right, we really get that expansion higher. Remember, we speak of the 1050 to 1110 macro, right? So notice right at 1050, that's when we create this order block. And that's why I mentioned, right, this became my high probability order block because it's being created right at 1050 as it's trading into a discount. So really like to see that. And you notice how right at 1110, we reach right into, so just prior to 1110, we reach into that 830 open and just back into, right, all these previous now inefficiencies. Because on the way lower, right, all these highs I got left behind. So let me just move this so you could see. Right, all these highs in here remained intact. So now buy side is resting above all these highs. And right, you see we come up and wipe that out, ultimately returning and clearing out our buy side like we mentioned. And when you look how beautiful this was, right, our ultimate target was that midnight open. And you see that ends up being the high of the day. Right, we get a little bit wicks above it, but candle bodies hold there beautifully. So really cool to see that. So yeah, that's what we had for just right the last little hour going into lunch. I just wanted to point out that macro so you could see really how it plays out. Right, so from 1050 to 1110, price rallies and attacks. Right, buy side as well as an inefficiency here. So that's what we wanted to see. Prior to taking out our buy side target here at this high, so let me go ahead and pull. Right, we had this as our buy side. So after trading into sell side here, creating that reversal, our target was then buy side and that midnight open. And you'll notice how just before we get to that buy side target, right, we halt inside of this breaker in the original 1 minute, fall just short. So now we're creating, right, more liquidity above this buy side here. So fall just short, right, create a fake little bearish signature. So we break structure lower, simply returning into this 1 minute fair value gap here. So right, we would expect this 1 minute fair value gap to hold us. You'll see that we dip into it, find support, still create equal highs, and then finally trade up and through, now clearing buy side right at 12 o'clock. So right during that lunch hour, we went up and cleared that buy side, trade into the midnight open, and just like we mentioned, right, reverse from there the rest of the day. Even though this is lunch and we don't look to trade lunch, right, price did offer you, well, we break structure, leave that fair value gap, break structure here again, right, leave this little fair value gap that gets barely traded into, and just really continue to trend lower. So really respecting bearish order flow after we make this high, and now reverse. Right after we break this low, that was our prominent break in structure. So now, right, I think we have this swing high, this swing low, higher high, now gets broken. So last down close candle becomes the breaker block. Right, so really we can go last consecutive. So this whole area, but really to refine it, we'll just go the largest, right, down close here. And you see how that aligns with this original 1 minute that supports price. So when we break through it, that becomes our inversion area as well. So look how many things lined up right here in this area, right, to where we have our breaker, we have this inversion, and as we broke through that low, we do it with another 1 minute. So right, a lot of things lined up here, and that's why we see price right after trading back into that 1 minute, hold, and continue to sell off. Let's go ahead and take all these off. So really, right, we were just using this 1 minute fair value gap holds, but that's also because, just like we pointed out, all those other things were supporting the idea of lower prices in this area. You'll notice how right at, so we talk about right after lunch, right at 101, we get that expansion up to clear out a short-term high. So now we've ran right the lunch hour highs, clearing a short-term high, now breaking structure lower here. So this becomes right the afternoon setup, forming right at 1 o'clock. Market structure shift, fair value gap left behind. And you'll see we trade into that beautifully. And from there, right, just continue to sell off. I often mention that I like to wait till 1:30 if looking to trade in the afternoon. Right, and still at 1:30, you'll see we get another retracement higher here. So at 1:30, we retrace just back up into, right, these up close candles. So this level here, right to that tick. Once we hit that level, you'll see that as we're breaking away now, right, we break underneath this volume imbalance. So notice we break underneath this volume imbalance with a fair value gap. So that right there is a bearish signature. Right, and now you could enter on this fair value gap and catch it right before that dump. So nice, right, re-entry technique here. But you'll see, right, after clearing buy side now, so really just seeking the short here in this area, created this short-term low, created the short-term high going into New York, right, cleared out sell side, ran back up to clear out buy side, and then now reversed and targeted sell side again, right? So we come out and clear the low made in the morning session. And from there, really just trended lower. So as I mentioned, these are higher time frame liquidity points. Price just continues to, right, gravitate into those. As we're hitting these areas, we're getting slight reactions as we can expect, right? Because they're higher time frame liquidity points. But ultimately, we were still just trending lower. Right, we put in this high right about 2:30. So we create this retracement, put in this high, continue to trade low into power hour. Now during power hour, right, pretty sloppy action, but still we're just constantly taking short-term lows. So notice every short-term low that's getting created, right, we're clearing. So we're constantly sweeping short-term lows, engineering liquidity, retracing, right, then sweeping those levels. And that's why you'll see why finally, after clearing the short-term low and having to sit through, right, that choppy power hour, what do we say? If during the macro from 3:15, so if 3:15 to 3:45 is rather lackluster like we had here, right, not much going on, well, we then expect those last 10 minutes into the close to offer right, some type of move. So you'll see that right at, right, like we say, those last 10 minutes. So from 3:50 to 4 o'clock, we look for something. And right at 3:50, we're getting a run on stops here. So I'll go ahead and just remove these lines. So right, we run the short-term low. Turtle swooping here. And from there, right, we get that expansion higher. Breaking structure at this high as well as this high. Giving us a slight retracement just back into this fair value gap here. Little institutional order flow entry drill. And from there, right, just attacking now that buy side target that was left behind earlier in the afternoon. So see, right, kind of really just a sloppy little buy program here to wrap up the day. Which makes sense, right? Because on the daily time frame, we're going to have this. Right, we've had mostly downward action. So from that midnight open, we've had this huge sell-off all afternoon. So we could expect that daily candle to create just a wick off its low. And that's why we get, right, this little expansion here, just into that short-term buy side that we created. From there, really just consolidating. So yeah, that was today's action. Right, as we mentioned, we're able to catch clean buys here up into our buy side. And right after seeing our buy side guy hit, we got that reversal and really clean delivery back down into sell side. So as of now, if we just go to higher time frames quickly and check. So we're trading into this down close candle here. Notice this long wick we've created. On the daily, like I mentioned, inside of this now bullish fair value gap. So we'll want to see how we react here. And as far as the hourly, right, we're coming off this low. So our interest will just be on the hourly fair value gap here. If we start expanding through this one, then we have all these highs really that are still pretty clean. So we could see us come back up and clear out these highs, relative equal highs here, as well as here. So that'll just be our outlook going forward. But yeah, like we spoke about this morning, we will have our last live stream of the week tomorrow morning. So I'll send out the alert just before getting on. But until then, have a good rest of the night, and we'll talk in the morning.